mother taught him.
Oh, okay. There you go. The mother of King Lemuel. So let's look at maybe somebody else. Proverbs 22:17. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise. Who are they? Who is he? Who is she? I don't know. Proverbs 24. These are also sayings of the wise. Uh-oh, who are these people? I don't know. And neither does anybody else. All we know is that the wise wrote some Proverbs, and they're listed in the book. They're part of the book of Proverbs. And so, who else? We've already mentioned them. The words of Agur, the son of Jacob, the oracle. Proverbs chapter 30. So, Agur, or Agur, however you want to pronounce it, he wrote some books, or wrote some Proverbs, not books, Proverbs. The words of King Lemuel, the oracle which his mother taught him, Proverbs 31. So, who wrote Proverbs? Solomon, the wise, Agur, and King Lemuel. Now, having said that, the last three on that list, we know absolutely nothing about. And there's nothing I can tell you about any of those people, or folks, because there's nothing written about them. There's nothing in historical documents. So, they're listed. We have to assume that they actually existed. King Lemuel, I will say that there is no record of a King Lemuel in the history of the Israelite nation. So there's a lot of speculation, and that has to be what it is, speculation, that this King Lemuel might have been Solomon. Speculation. There's no proof one way or another. And so, but we know that according to the book of Proverbs, these four folks wrote some Proverbs that got printed in the book of Proverbs. So, let's take a look at the meaning, the theme, and the arrangement. So, the word proverb is translated from a Hebrew word called, if I pronounce it correct, mashal. And that might not be correct, but that's how I pronounce it. So, mashal. And mashal comes from a root word meaning parallel or similar. Parallel or similar. Hence, signifying a way of comparing. And we're going to see that a whole bunch as we look at many of the Proverbs. Signifying a way of comparing. Here's what another writer had to say about Proverbs. The mashal denotes a simple, self-evident truth expressed in a short, pointed sentence designed to arrest attention, awaken responsive thought, and remain fixed in your memory. So, what does that mean? Well, I think it means the Proverbs that we're going to read are short. They're to the point. They don't dilly-dally. It's this and or that. And we're going to see that as we look at the different styles. But I think Brother Miller here had pretty fair definition when you put the whole thing together. Here's some other definitions, though, that we'll see. Easton's Bible Dictionary says a proverb is a trite maxim, a similitude, a parable. Thayer says proverb, parable, proverbial saying, aphorism, byword, similitude, there's another one, poem, sentences of ethical wisdom, ethical maxims. Halley's handbook, a short, pithy, axiomatic saying, the life of which is antithesis or comparison. I think you get paid for the bigger words because most of us don't know what they mean. Comparison. They are wholly unconnected, designed primarily for the young, a form of teaching, repetition of practical thoughts in a form that would stick in your mind, something easy to remember. We'll work on that one shortly. So, what do you think the theme is? Well, let's spend just a few minutes, if you have your Bibles. Shelby's going to read to us the first 7 verses of the book of Proverbs, and as he reads those, let's see if we can conjure up what we think a theme might be for this book. Oh, just a second, Shelby. Larry? Yeah, for those of you at home, Larry just said that Proverbs deals in principles, not so much specifics, my words, not Larry's. And it will say in one word, do it this way, and then in another place it'll say it, no, do it that way. And so that's kind of what we'll see in Proverbs. So Shelby, let's read 1 through 7 and see if we can figure out what the theme is of this book.
The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equality, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction.
So, from that reading, can we postulate what may be the theme? Oh, by the way, thank you, Shelby. Can we postulate what the theme might be for the book of Proverbs? I'll help. Yes, sir. Yep. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And every commentator that I read all said the very same thing. This is the theme. The theme of the book is to gain knowledge. And in that knowledge, we're going to gain, from that knowledge, we will gain wisdom. And from that wisdom, we will make right choices. And that is, I think, what the book is all about, trying to cause us to be very focused in our Christian walk and help us not to sin, but to avoid sin. And hopefully that's what we'll be looking at. One of the things that was brought forward in by one of the commentators, Denny Petrillo, he made a big thing about the word life. The word life occurs 32 times within the book of Proverbs. And he said that discussing life and the way one lives from day to day creates for us 2 choices. One is predominated with the idea of the fool versus the wise. The fool is described with 5 main ideas or words, as is the wise, also 5 main ideas and words. So as we go through the book of Proverbs, perhaps we'll look for those clues of this idea of the fool and the wise, and we're going to see that many times, because Solomon contrasts that all of the time. The Christian today should look to Proverbs to provide us practical guidance to make life more enjoyable as a whole, while at the same time as sin-free as possible. If a person is successful in the Christian walk, it is because he or she exercised wisdom in the choices that they made, the people that he or she associates with, and the way that he or she uses their time. And I think that's a very good point, and we'll see that as we continue our study. Let's look at some different styles that we're going to see in Proverbs, some different styles. One of the styles is called equivalence, and that might be expressed in this way. This is identical with that, or this is really that. So here's some English examples of what that means. So here's some English. Business is business. We've heard that. A friend in need is a friend indeed. A man's home is his castle. Sure, see? Short little sentences that are easy to remember are memorable. That's what Proverbs is about. The best things in life are free. Yeah. This one's an easy one. One man's junk is another man's treasure. Exactly correct. So that's the idea of equivalence. This is identical with that. This is really that. Let's see what a biblical example of that might be. Judges 8:21. As is the man, so is his strength. As is the man, so is his strength. This is identical with that. This is really that. Proverbs 14:4. Where there is no oxen, the manger is empty. Makes sense. Proverbs 29:5. Whoever flatters his neighbor is spreading the net for his feet. Whoever flatters his neighbor is spreading the net for his feet. Wants them to come over, I think. So that's the idea behind equivalence. The second one, Galatians. Whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. Very familiar to us. We use that a lot. The next is a paradox or a contrast. This would be encapsulated like this. This is not like that. This is really not that. So here's some English examples. All that glitters is not gold. That makes sense. Not all are hunters who blow horns. True. This one you'll get. You can lead a horse to... Exactly. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Contrast. This is not that. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Good fences make great neighbors. Exactly. Good fences make good neighbors. Well, not necessarily. So let's take a look at some biblical examples of what that might look like. Ecclesiastes 5:10, whoever loves money never has enough. This is really not that. John 1:46, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Might have been somebody by the name of Jesus. Proverbs 25:15, a gentle tongue can break a bone. Probably not. Proverbs 27:7, to the hungry, even what is bitter tastes sweet. Unlikely. So that's the idea of a paradox. The next one is similarity. This one would say, this is like that, this is or acts like that. So keep that in mind. So here's our English examples. A chip off the old block. Yeah, chip off the old block. Time and tide. Wait for no man. Yeah, or no one. Exactly. Like father? There you go. Similarity. So let's look at the biblical examples. Hosea 4:9. Like people, like priest. Ezekiel 16:44. Like mother, like daughter. Proverbs 25:13. Like the coolness of snow in the heart of harvest time is like a reliable messenger. Okay? The fourth kind is absurdity. Absurdity. Contrary to the right order, futility. We'll see some or more than some of this as we look at the Proverbs. So this would say this makes about as much sense as whatever, nothing. So let's see some examples. A whistling woman and crowing hen are liked by neither God nor man. Absurdity. Craziness. What is the use of running when you are on the wrong road? Do not count your chickens before they hatch. You know this one. You have the cart before the horse. Yeah. You are barking up the wrong tree. Money does not grow on trees. Yep. So let's look at some biblical examples. Proverbs 26:14. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. What does that mean? Absurdity makes no sense. Jeremiah 13:23. Can the Ethiopian change his skin or the lepers its spots? 1 Kings 20:11. One who puts on his armor should not boast like the one who takes it off. Absurdity, craziness. The next one is classified and characterizes persons, actions, or situations. And in this scenario, it would be like, you remind me of. You remind me of something. So some English examples would be, a fool and his money are soon parted. So you remind me of that. A rolling stone gathers no moss. Pretty familiar to us. So let's look some biblical examples. Proverbs 14:15. Simple man believes anything. Simple man believes anything. Here we go again with Solomon and the concept of foolish versus wise. Foolish versus wise. Proverbs 13:1. A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a mocker does not listen to rebuke. So the next one is relative value or priority. Relative value or priority. In this case, this is worth more than that, or better this than that. That idea, that concept. So some examples. A bird in the hand, worth two in the bush. Exactly right. Better late than never. Out of the frying pan into the fire. It ain't over until... Exactly. So it ain't over until it's over, or it ain't over until the fat lady sings. Exactly right. Two heads are... There you go. So that's sort of the idea of this is worth more than that, or better this. than that. So let's look at the biblical examples. Proverbs 19:22. Better to be poor than a liar. And we'll understand more about that as we go along. Proverbs 22:1. A good name is more to be desired than great riches. And that's a proverb that we have talked about many times, at least in my lifetime. So, the last one of these is consequences. Consequences. So the idea is this will cause that to occur, or if you do that, if you do this, then this is what's going to happen. So that's the idea. So nothing ventured, nothing gained. You don't do anything, you're not going to gain anything either. Do not bite off more than you can chew. Yeah, do not bite off more than you can chew. Here's the athletic people in the audience's thing. No pain, no gain. And here's for our military people. No guts, no glory. Exactly. So the biblical examples of some of this. Hosea 8:7. Sow the wind and reap the whirlwind. Do a little bit of this and you're going to get a lot of this idea. Proverbs 1:5. A wise man will hear and increase in learning, and a man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. This will cause that to occur, that kind of thing. Proverbs 26:27. He who digs a pit will fall into it, and he who rolls a stone, it will come back on him. Kind of a crazy proverb, but that's the idea. So the book of Proverbs is written in the style of Hebrew poetry, which we've talked about, which does not rhyme, and but it does draw a parallelism, and I think Adam is the one, when we first started, he talked about parallelism, parallel thought, and so let's take a look at that. So parallelism, I found this somewhat of a definition. Parallelism, also known as parallel structure, is when phrases in a sentence have similar or the same grammatical structure. In its most basic usage, parallelism provides a phrase with balance and clarity. Parallelism also serves to give phrases a pattern and rhythm. And we're going to see a lot of that in Proverbs. So, when Neil Armstrong first stepped foot onto the moon, he said a famous quote. What was it? One step for man, one leap for mankind. Parallelism occurs in this little quote, and the focus is the one. One step for man, one leap for mankind. And so that's the kind of idea that we're going to see. So parallelism gives a memorable rhythm and repetition. We're going to see three different types of parallelism in Proverbs. The first one is synonymous. A statement is made, then made again in different words. Here's an example. This is Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before stumbling. So a statement is made and then made again in different words. The next is contrasting. So the first was synonymous. The next is contrasting. The truth expressed in the first clause now is opposite of the second. The truth expressed in the first is opposite of the second. Chapter 15, verse 8. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. So contrasting that. The third one is progressive. The second clause develops the idea expressed in the first. Develops the idea expressed in the first. Proverbs 14:12. There is a way which seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. So its second clause develops the idea expressed in the first. So, outline. The outline of the book. Chapter 1, 1 through 7 is the purpose and the theme, as shall be read to us. The purpose and the theme. Chapter 1, 8 through chapter 9, 18 is a father's wise counsel to a son. This is Solomon, and all of the commentators will say he's really talking to his son in this, as he uses that verbiage throughout these 9 chapters. Chapter 10, verses 1 through 22:16, Proverbs of Solomon, practical values of life. So we'll see some of that, probably a lot of that. Chapter 22 through 17, or 22:17 through 24:34, Proverbs from the anonymous wise men. We don't know who they are, but they wrote some Proverbs. Chapter 25:1 through 29:27, Proverbs again of Solomon, and we titled this Hezekiah's edition. These, if you go to that section, if you remember, you read that Hezekiah liked Proverbs, and he went out and found some additional Proverbs, sent a group of folks out digging for them and found them that were Solomon. So they're referred to as Hezekiah's edition. Chapter 30, 1 through 33, the Proverbs of Agur, however. And then finally, chapter 31 is the Proverbs of King Lemuel. So that's the basic outline of the book of Proverbs. And there's a lot of stuff in between those chapters. And so we'll dig into it next week. And our topic for next week, children, obey your parents. Let's see what Solomon has to say about that. Chapters 1 through 3. Thank you. Thank you all for participating and going through this little bit of an introduction, kind of different, but I thought it would be useful to understand a little bit of how Proverbs is constructed and what we're going to hopefully learn. Thank you all at home as well for watching, and I hope to see you next week.